You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
As immigration crackdowns ramp up, many farm workers are facing a critical crossroads.
They don't know how to decide on going to work or staying home.
How a recent social media post is heightening fears in California's fields. Plus, a way to lose some pounds could be cut from California's budget. Why weight loss drugs might be on the chopping block. And we highlight a local business creating a safe space for its customers.
I myself am non-binary, and they say your vibe attracts your tribe.
We head to an Oakland yoga studio that is stretching the norms in the community. I'm Ann Makovic. We're going to have those stories and lots more coming up in just a little bit. But first, the latest on that Air India plane crash. At least 240 people have been killed after that plane crashed after takeoff. We've learned at least one person has survived. This social media video, verified by our CBS News Confirmed team, showing the plane's last seconds in the air. The plane's tail landed on top of a hospital. A medical association says it killed at least 5 medical students on the ground. Rescue efforts ongoing in that area. This is where it happened. It is in the city of Ahmedabad in western India. It's the largest city in that part of the country. The plane was on its way to London's Gatwick Airport. Take a look at this map. It shows where the plane sent its last signal. You can see how close it is to where the plane went down. It had only been in the air for 8 minutes.
Flight AI-171 was carrying 230 passengers and 12 crew members on board. Of the passengers, 169 are Indian nationals, 53 are British nationals, there are 7 Portuguese nationals, and 1 Canadian national. The injured passengers have been taken by local authorities to the nearest hospitals. We are actively working with the authorities on all emergency response efforts.
You can see just how bad the damage was from that crash. Firefighters trying to put out smoldering wreckage. The plane reduced to a pile of ash and debris. The tail of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner is resting on top of what CBS News has verified is a hospital. There are varying reports of the number of people who were killed. Reuters news agency says at least 30 bodies have been recovered from a building where the plane crashed, with many more people trapped inside. The Federation of All India Medical Association says between 50 and 60 students on the ground have been admitted to the hospital. It said at least 5 students are still missing. The hospital says in all, they have received 186 bodies and the 1 lone survivor. Here's another view of the immediate aftermath of that crash. You can see those plumes of smoke towering above buildings. Again, that Air India flight went down in a residential area in the western city of Ahmedabad, fuels for a 4,000-mile journey to the UK. According to the Aviation Safety Network database, this is the first Dreamliner crash since it went into service in 2009. CBS News reporter Chanel Call has more on the plane and investigation.
I mean, it is early stages in the investigation, but we can tell you this was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. This is a plane that has had problems in the past, Mugo. Problems you'll remember eventually resulted in evacuations and in injuries. But according to the Aviation Safety Network database, this plane has not been involved in a fatal crash until now. As for a cause here, obviously still too early to know, but I can tell you I've been speaking with our team of CBS News meteorologists here in New York and across the country. They tell me weather did not appear to be a factor in this case. The skies were clear. There were light winds, but there did seem to be some good visibility at the time of this crash. As for next steps, the NTSB, we know, will now be leading a team of American investigators traveling to India to assist the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau with this ongoing investigation.
This is the deadliest crash since 298 people died on a Malaysia Airlines flight in 2014. That plane was shot down over eastern Ukraine. The UN Aviation Agency blamed Russia for downing that jetliner. Moscow called the findings bias. Well, stay with us for the very latest on this Air India plane crash. Things are going to be evolving throughout the day. We'll bring you updates on air, on our website, and streaming on the free CBS News app. Turning now to our first alert weather this Thursday, meteorologist Zoe Mintz has your Bay Area forecast.
Happy Thursday. We are so close to a really lovely weekend, very typical of June, very typical of what we've been feeling the past week of weather ahead of us. We'll be seeing the early morning fog giving way to afternoon sunshine for our inland communities, while the coastal communities still going to be seeing a little bit more of that fog and that cloud coverage. Upper 50s as those high temperatures closer to the coast. We'll still be at the mid 60s here in San Francisco, but you might notice even for us in the city, there will be a lot more sunshine. And the further inland you go, the more sunshine you're going to see. As usual, will be in the upper 70s to low 80s. The areas that haven't seen nearly as much of that sunshine over the past several days are likely going to see a little bit more of it into this afternoon. But that doesn't necessarily mean that our temperatures are going to be that much warmer today. We are still going to be a couple of degrees below average, but within about 5 degrees of seasonable for this time of year. So nothing too crazy is on the way when it comes to huge temperature swings. The winds are going to be what we've been dealing with the past several days, 20 to 30 miles an hour in the afternoon, quieting down overnight. Tomorrow afternoon, much of the same, keeping those temperatures very similar through the rest of the weekend and into early next week. There's going to be a storm system that's going to cool down our temperatures a bit by Monday, but by Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, we're going to be seeing an area of high pressure that's going to build overhead. And as many of you know, high pressure brings those warmer temperatures, and that's what we're likely going to see by Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. Again, there is a mini heat wave on the way. It's not anything record breaking. It's not anything that we aren't used to seeing this time of year, but hey, at least there's some changes that we can talk about and some warmer weather, because I know many of us have been kind of sick of these cooler, these breezier conditions, especially for those of us that live closer to our coastal communities. So nicer weather, it is on the way next week.
A legal battle over President Trump's deployment of military troops in Los Angeles taking center stage at a San Francisco federal courtroom this afternoon. The court considering a request from Governor Newsom for a temporary restraining order blocking the Trump administration from sending federal troops to help with immigration enforcement. Governor Newsom saying the president overstepped his authority. President Trump says California leaders didn't contain the violence at protests fast enough, so he took the reins.
You would have had a horrible situation had I not sent them in. Horrible. You'd be reporting on a lot of death and a lot of destruction that's not going to take place.
This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk.
The Justice Department is calling California's legal effort a, quote, crass political stunt. Newsom says the 4,000 National Guard troops and the 700 Marines that have been mobilized are unnecessary and are instilling fear. In downtown Los Angeles, a curfew going into effect again for a third night. That is after nearly a week of unrest over immigration raids. The second night of the curfew helped calm things overnight. Police did arrest dozens of protesters outside City Hall for failing to disperse. The curfew covers 1 square mile where most of the violence and vandalism has broken out in LA. City leaders say the vast majority of the protests have been peaceful and most of the demonstrators are following the law.
Our role is to protect everybody's First Amendment rights, and a lot of people have come out and respected that and expressed their feelings in a peaceful way.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says the curfew is going to be in place as long as it's needed. LA's police chief says his teams have not needed help from National Guard members. Those protests may have calmed a little bit in Los Angeles, but the fear in the immigrant community remains very high. New video of federal agents chasing a man through an agricultural field in Southern California is touching more nerves. While no similar raids have been confirmed closer to the Bay Area, the impact is being felt. Arlen Ramirez went to Monterey County and heard from a farm worker advocate.
Well, the fields of the Salinas Valley are usually bustling this time of year, but some of the rows may be a little quieter this week. The United Farm Workers Union says that fears are spreading fast after immigration raids took place in Ventura and Kern counties, targeting agricultural workers.
In the farm fields just outside of Salinas, farm workers are facing a heartbreaking dilemma.
They don't know how to decide on going to work or staying home. So it's scary because I either go to work and get money to feed my family, but I risk getting caught and then not seeing my family again. So it's pretty scary.
There haven't been any confirmed ICE raids in Monterey County this week, but social media posts like this one showing federal officers chasing a man through an agricultural field near Oxnard are fueling anxiety among workers. Mia captured the scene on video that began when officers stopped the man's car and then the man took off on foot.
Our community is very scared. Everyone is just scared that they're going to be arrested for no reason.
The FBI confirmed they did help ICE with immigration enforcement in Ventura County, but didn't offer details about the arrest. Meanwhile, the UFW is calling on local officials to provide reassurance and support to farm worker communities and offering legal support to farm workers fearing deportation.
Still ahead here on CBS News Bay Area. The budget is out for one East Bay city. What's in and what's being cut for the next fiscal year as Oakland deals with a huge deficit. Plus, how policy changes from Sacramento to Washington are pushing the solar industry to the brink. Also,
a Peninsula man led the effort to build this field in honor of his son, a police officer killed years ago in the line of duty. The impact of the field in crime prevention today.
In the Bay Area, a new WNBA franchise is taking flight. Catch this first-in-a-lifetime inaugural season as the Golden State Valkyries play live on KPIX and Pix Plus.
Happy Thursday, Friday Eve, Little Friday, whatever you want to call it. We are so close to the end of the week and the weekend, but really not too many changes are on the way. You might notice the fog burning off a little bit quicker throughout this morning and afternoon with a lot more sunshine, especially for those places that have been right on the edge of the border of the fog and the sunshine. Today, likely going to be a bit sunnier. Inland areas, again, going to be in the low 80s through the rest of the week and into the weekend, but a bigger heat up is on the way into mid next week.
Oakland City Council has passed a new budget weeks earlier than required. It is a 2-year spending plan that avoids major cuts to public safety and layoffs at City Hall. Council members credit some creative budget maneuvering to secure more funding. Or Lauren Toms breaks it all down.
Engine 10 in Oakland has been shuttered for the better part of 3 years for maintenance and upgrades, but firefighters moved in as the fire truck returned to its position. The reopening of the fire station comes on the same day the Oakland City Council passed a $2.1 billion budget with no steep cuts to public safety programs, including fire. It's a sign of hope, says Fire Captain Seth Ollier, in a city that's been plagued by financial and safety struggles.
It's just the idea that we are on the right path and that we're moving forward in Oakland. I love to hear the sound of impact drivers working because it means that boards are coming down from the window. Pretty soon we're going to back the fire engine in. We're setting up beds upstairs.
Engine 10's reopening marks the first time in 23 years that every firehouse in Oakland is open and operational. The budget allocated an additional $10.3 million to avoid a planned brownout at one station. Fire Chief Damon Covington says even without a budget increase, he still feels public safety was a priority.
We are where we are financially, and we're working our way out of it. And our hope, and I think the city's hope, is that we figure some things out about how we can proceed and be fully funded across the board.
City officials say the budget balances a $265 million budget deficit over the next 2 years, with no cuts to city jobs. Councilmember Janani Ramachandran of the budget team says they got creative in securing additional revenue streams from a billboard agreement, cutting 240 vacant city positions and 85 frozen positions, and lowering starting salaries for city jobs.
This year, we were so intentional about making sure we're using only ongoing revenue sources to fund recurring expenses. And this is one of the things that I found most important about this process, to make sure we were being responsible. And that means we can't be a city that does everything for everyone.
The city is also relying heavily on a proposed parcel tax increase that leaders hope will raise an additional $40 million for public safety. But the budget wasn't without some public safety cuts. And despite staffing shortages for the police department, the budget slashes one police academy class. Last month, the graduating academy had just 12 recruits. But Oakland Police Union President Wee Win tells us the decision could have greater impacts on police staffing down the road.
We want an agency to be 800, then we have to honor those words that we're promising our voters. And I think that eliminating a police academy, 1 out of the 6, is very challenging.
And as these firefighters return to Engine 10, they know that the budget doesn't solve everything, but it's a step towards progress.
We just want the resources and the support to be able to show up when Oaklanders need us most.
Well, the budget keeps all 25 Oakland fire stations open over the next 2 years, with the exception of one station brownout for 90 days this winter. The road to a cleaner California has hit a roadblock at the White House. President Trump signed a measure to officially block the state's push toward electric vehicles.
We officially rescue the U.S. auto industry from destruction by terminating the California electric vehicle mandate once and for all.
So that move revokes California's emission waivers that would have banned the sale of new gas-powered cars in the state by 2035. It also rolls back rules that allowed the state to set its own vehicle pollution controls.
We refuse to let this unprecedented and illegal use of the CRA undermine the Clean Air Act waivers that give California the authority to enforce our own emission standards.
Attorney General Bonta and Governor Newsom have already filed a lawsuit. We've been telling you about the struggling home solar industry for some time now. A new warning that the Republican spending bill in Washington could be the last straw. Our John Ramos has details of the plan to eliminate a 30% federal tax credit.
We've been doing a lot of reporting on the solar power industry lately, and the news hasn't been very good. California has been pulling back from the incentives it once offered for rooftop solar, and now action by Congress has some people thinking the industry could be on the verge of collapse. Solar power itself is a proven technology with a lot of benefits to offer as a clean, renewable source of energy. But right now, a lot of energy is going into just keeping the business alive.
I think the industry is going to go through some very hard times.
Severin Bornstein at UC Berkeley's Haas Energy Institute says rooftop solar has gone through a lot of changes, with the state reducing how much solar system owners get from the energy they produce. But he says lately things have been improving.
2024 was back to 2021 levels. So they had really recovered from a drop. But now with what the Trump administration is doing, I think that there's a lot of concern. There were already a lot of rooftop solar companies that had pretty tenuous financing and were having a hard time. And I think this is pushing some of them over the edge.
He's talking about a Republican effort in the budget bill to completely eliminate the 30% federal tax credit given to people who install solar systems on their homes. That, along with the tariffs being imposed by President Trump, has solar industry insiders calling foul.
It's really sad to see solar energy getting caught in partisan crosshairs. The sun is not Republican or Democrat. The need for more electricity is not Democrat or Republican. We need more energy in America, and Congress has a role to play in making that happen.
But right now, the role Congress is playing is to restrict rooftop solar, along with other renewable energies, in favor of older sources like fossil fuels and coal. The effect has already been devastating, with solar companies going bankrupt across the country. On Monday, solar giant Sonova Energy filed for protection, and last week, Solar Mosaic, a major lender in the business, also went belly up. But Gordon Johnson, founder of a research firm studying the industry, says the companies may have brought it on themselves simply by the way they did business.
The solar industry in the U.S. is in a state of significant disarray. And, it's not something that could not have been predicted. They perpetually issue debt. These companies are always issuing debt. As soon as they can't issue debt, right, and they can't plug that hole of the actual cost of the system versus what they show Wall Street, they quickly go bankrupt.
The prospects for the industry aren't good right now, but Joe Osha, an analyst for investment banker Guggenheim Securities, says rooftop solar should not be confused with the overall solar energy market.
In megawatt terms, I will tell you that the residential solar business, as visible as it is only a tiny fraction of the solar generation that gets added into this country each year. The vast majority of it are these large utility scale solar farms. I don't see any scenario under which that utility scale solar business, to borrow your term, collapses.
That leaves residential solar twisting in the political wind, and experts are saying small companies that have been the backbone of California's solar revolution will have a hard time staying in business.
Higher interest rates and equipment inflation have also hurt solar companies. One analysis says that more than $14 billion in clean energy and electric vehicles have been canceled or delayed across the country. Still ahead here on CBS News Bay Area. Some weight loss drugs like Ozempic are currently covered by Medi-Cal, but that could change. How the state's budget battle could come at a cost for those who need it. Ozempic and other weight loss drugs right now are covered by Medi-Cal. And why they might be Hollywood's secret to staying skinny, many ordinary people need them to stay healthy, too. Kara St. Cyr gives us a look.
Eating right is only half the battle for Shakina Samaya Thomas.
My highest weight was right around 330.
She struggled with obesity her entire life.
Because that's the low-carb dairy for my daily.
Between surgeries and nutrition programs, the only thing that helps her keep the weight off
I will usually get
is an injection of the weight loss medication Wegovy.
It's been life-changing, yeah. Because it's, even with following my food plan and following my exercise, I'll get about 10 miles of walking in this week alone. I walk 1.5 to 2 miles almost every day. Even with that, I was still experiencing the inevitable regain that comes over time.
Wegovy is approved for patients who struggle with obesity, and it costs around $1,000 an injection.
Thank you.
Which Shakina can't afford without Medi-Cal. But under a new budget proposed by Governor Gavin Newsom, weight loss drugs would no longer be covered for Medi-Cal recipients like Shakina.
It's a game changer, and without it, it's life-threatening and really, really scary.
Weight loss drugs drive up Medi-Cal costs, with the state spending $733 million on Wegovy and Ozempic in 2023 alone. Cutting coverage could possibly save millions as the state faces a $12 billion deficit.
For people on Medi-Cal, many of them are disabled.
But Liz Helms, the CEO and president of the Chronic Care Coalition, says the state might not save as much as you'd think.
It could cost the state 3 times more than what it's costing them now because other co-occurring chronic conditions can get worse.
Without Wegovy, Shakina says she's looking at an extra 15 to 20 pounds of weight gain, setting her back almost a decade of progress.
I do struggle every single day to maintain my weight, to stay stable, to stay healthy. I didn't decide to take any of the medical treatment options just because it was easy.
Coming up in our next half hour here on CBS News Bay Area. With immigration rates ramping up, we are hearing from Bay Area Republicans on President Trump's tactics. Plus,
I'm Carter Evans in Northern California near the Oregon border, where cattle ranchers have a beef with wolves. That's next.
streaming CBS News Bay Area.
Thanks for staying with us this Thursday. I'm Ann Makovic, and here's a look at some of our news headlines. At least 240 people have been killed after an Air India plane crashed after takeoff. We've learned that at least one person did survive. This happened in the city of Ahmedabad. The plane was on its way to London. It had only been in the air for 8 minutes. It was carrying people from India, Portugal, Canada, and England. A legal battle over President Trump's deployment of military troops to Los Angeles taking center stage at a San Francisco federal courtroom this afternoon. The court is considering a request from Governor Newsom for a temporary restraining order blocking the Trump administration from sending federal troops to help with immigration enforcement. And you can expect to see people out on Valencia Street in San Francisco with a drink in hand because the new entertainment zone between 16th and 21st Street starts today. So bar goers can now walk the streets and sip their drinks. No festival or special event needed. The entertainment zone is in effect Sundays through Thursdays. All right, let's get another check on our first alert forecast this Thursday. Here is meteorologist Zoe Mintz.
Happy Thursday. We are so close to a really lovely weekend, very typical of June, very typical of what we've been feeling the past week of weather ahead of us. We'll be seeing the early morning fog giving way to afternoon sunshine for our inland communities, while the coastal communities still going to be seeing a little bit more of that fog and that cloud coverage. Upper 50s as those high temperatures closer to the coast. We'll still be at the mid 60s here in San Francisco, but you might notice even for us in the city, there will be a lot more sunshine. And the further inland you go, the more sunshine you're going to see. As usual, will be in the upper 70s to low 80s. The areas that haven't seen nearly as much of that sunshine over the past several days are likely going to see a little bit more of it into this afternoon. But that doesn't necessarily mean that our temperatures are going to be that much warmer today. We are still going to be a couple of degrees below average, but within about 5 degrees of seasonable for this time of year. So nothing too crazy is on the way when it comes to huge temperature swings. The winds are going to be what we've been dealing with the past several days, 20 to 30 miles an hour in the afternoon, quieting down overnight. Tomorrow afternoon, much of the same, keeping those temperatures very similar through the rest of the weekend and into early next week. There's going to be a storm system that's going to cool down our temperatures a bit by Monday, but by Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, we're going to be seeing an area of high pressure that's going to build overhead. And as many of you know, high pressure brings those warmer temperatures, and that's what we're likely going to see by Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. Again, there is a mini heat wave on the way. It's not anything record-breaking. It's not anything that we aren't used to seeing this time of year, but hey, at least there's some changes that we can talk about and some warmer weather, because I know many of us have been kind of sick of these cooler, these breezier conditions, especially for those of us that live closer to our coastal communities. So nicer weather, it is on the way next week.
More now on that deadly Air India plane crash. At least 240 people were killed on the plane and on the ground. A doctor says a single passenger survived. It is one of India's worst airline disasters in decades, the world's really. That plane was headed to London, and that is where we find reporter Chris Livesay.
This video captures the Boeing jet's last seconds in the sky, taking off in India, bound for London, when it loses altitude and bursts into a huge fireball. The Air India flight went down in a residential area in the western city of Ahmedabad, fueled for a 4,000-mile journey to the UK.
So it was leaving with a full capacity of fuel. So we're looking at about 130 tons of fuel that were on the aircraft. That caused a massive explosion, and as a result, the damage on the scene will be intense.
The plane was carrying passengers from Canada, Britain, Portugal, and India. And they were all heading here to London's Gatwick Airport.
My thoughts, and I'm sure those of the entire House, are with those who've been affected by the tragic plane crash in India.
India's civil aviation says pilots issued a mayday right after takeoff and lost its signal less than a minute into the flight. The tail of the 787 Dreamliner is resting on top of what CBS News has verified is a hospital. Reuters news agency says at least 30 bodies have been recovered from a building where the plane crashed, and many more people are trapped inside. The National Transportation Safety Board is headed to India to lead a team of U.S. investigators helping pinpoint what caused the crash.
So the Boeing 787 does have a strong safety record. More than 1 billion passengers have flown on one in the U.S. 3 airlines fly the Dreamliner, including American Airlines, Hawaiian, and United. Again, stay with us for the latest on the Air India plane crash. It's going to be evolving throughout the day. We will bring you updates on air, on our website, and streaming on the free CBS News app. Now to the immigration protests in Southern California. We are learning about 700 Marines have now completed training, and they're going to be deployed to Los Angeles over the next couple of days. The White House says at least 330 immigrants have been taken into custody since the ICE raids ramped up on Friday. Some sweeps happening at their place of work. The Trump administration says a third of those detained have criminal convictions. So how are Latino Republicans feeling about the president's intensified immigration enforcement? Sent our Amanda Harry to find out.
One of my most valued pieces of political memorabilia here. But this was the program and also the tickets for Trump's first inauguration in 2017.
Richard Maher is part of the San Francisco Young Republicans, a Mexican-American and a longtime Trump supporter. He voted for President Donald Trump's aggressive immigration enforcement.
I was very much looking for him to actually enforce the rule of law and to do it in an orderly but also assertive fashion.
Maher is sympathetic to the emotions surrounding deportation, but believes immigration should only happen legally.
Certainly there's a lot of heartbreak there. At the same time, our nation's a nation in which we respect the rule of law. And it's important that we make sure that those laws are enforced.
There have been reports of ICE raiding hospitals, schools, and workplaces. Here in the Bay Area, we've seen agents making arrests at immigration courts. Maher thinks efforts should be first focused on those who pose a danger.
We need to actually be very conscientious about making sure that the criminal element, the narco traffickers and all that are the ones that are targeted first, and then we can move on to those that may be nonviolent, but at the same time may have violated our laws coming here.
Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley represents California's 3rd District, stretching from Sacramento's northeast suburbs to the Nevada border. He believes the number of arrests happening at sensitive locations like churches and public demonstrations is being overstated.
Well, I think a lot of that has been debunked. You have false rumors that are spreading online. The reality is that President Obama deported 3 million people. This is just a standard part of the of ICE's operations.
Kiley says the intensified enforcement is inevitable because of California's laws.
Because the area is a sanctuary jurisdiction, as is California as a whole, they were not able to get custody of people in a custodial setting at a jail or someplace like that. Instead, they have to do targeted operations in the community.
Protesters have been coming out by the thousands to express their disapproval of the ICE raids. Both Kiley and Maher think some of the demonstrations have gone too far.
Truly horrifying things that we've seen. You're talking about Molotov cocktails being thrown at officers. You're talking about bricks being thrown.
It's perfectly fine to protest peacefully. No one is saying that. But when it gets to the level of violence, when it gets to the level of property damage, then we have a problem here. That needs to be clear and unequivocally condemned.
Maher believes the unrest may result in more Latinos supporting Trump.
I think you're going to see as anarchy spreads, more movement toward Trump, especially amongst Latino communities, those who are legal and observant, documented, and those who actually care about public safety and their families.
Well, there is a new twist in the billionaire-backed effort to build a new city in Solano County. The plan for a massive development was pulled from last November's ballot, but it could be moving forward after the Sassoon City Council voted to begin the annexation of 22,000 acres. More than 100 people showed up for public comment at the City Council meeting Tuesday night, both in support of and against the project California Forever. The name of the venture says it will front the cost to explore the annexation of land. And if the city makes a final approval down the line, it would mean a $10 million investment by California Forever to Sassoon City.
What's the problem? I don't get it. It should be an easy yes vote to go ahead and take the time to do the research. And as far as I'm concerned, the project should go forward as well.
If Sassoon City eventually annexes that land, it means that fewer hurdles for California Forever will have developing it. Opponents of the project say the group behind it can't be trusted to do what is best for Suisun City.
When it was happening last summer to go on the ballot, and nobody wanted it, and so they took it off the ballot. And now with this, we don't even have that right anymore.
Well, California Forever released this statement on the vote, saying we look forward to working with Suisun City and Rio Vista to bring new industries, amazing neighborhoods, and new sources of tax revenue to the region. Well, now to a success story of sorts. Conservation efforts have brought the gray wolf back from the edge of extinction. The Fish and Wildlife Service has finalized a rule to remove it from the endangered species list. Reporter Carter Evans traveled to the shadows of Mount Shasta in Siskiyou County and shows us the focus now is protecting livestock.
On the California-Oregon border in the shadow of Mount Shasta.
Because it is potentially a kill site, we will be, kind of cautious.
We joined Axel Honeycutt from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife on the hunt for the gray wolf.
So these are wolf tracks, and they're huge. They're almost as big as my hands.
Once nearly extinct in the U.S., wolves are making a big comeback in California. Trail cameras show wolf packs in Siskiyou County. They're healthy and well-fed, partly because these wolves,
Like that's a lot of black cattle here and there,
have developed a taste for beef.
I mean, this is easy pickings for them is what it is.
Ranchers Jim and Mary Rickards say that in the last year, they've lost 16 cows to confirmed wolf attacks with 60 suspected kills.
That is absolutely profits.
It really eats into your herd and to your bottom line. It's hard for a lot of us to stay in business.
The first gray wolf wandered back into California by accident in 2011. Wolves here soon became the most protected in the country, listed as endangered by both the federal and state government.
What happens if you kill a wolf?
Not good.
Not good. Jail time.
And so we are really defenseless.
The state's population surged to 50 to 70 wolves in a decade. So California is now helping ranchers with a wolf tracking map and possibly allowing more aggressive deterrents, like beanbag rounds.
Essentially teaching the wolf a negative lesson.
Yeah, they need a negative lesson in order to have that reinforcement.
Rancher Janet Liotto says she's lost almost 50 animals
We've tried every deterrent that has ever been known or suggested.
and had to hire a night watchman.
We're probably paying about $70,000 to $100,000.
California already spent more than $3 million compensating ranchers for their losses, and the money's running out. So now the state is only paying for confirmed wolf kills, not deterrents.
The wolves, they're expensive. And if the state of California wants to sustain these sort of numbers, then it's going to be a costly project.
Either for you or for them.
Either way, and it should not be our job to feed the wolves.
That's my ultimate hope.
Patrick Griffin agrees. He investigates wolf attacks so ranchers can get paid.
Wolves need tolerant people to survive. That's the bottom line. If there's no compensation, tolerance goes away over a period of time.
It's a price California taxpayers may have to pay for the love of wolves.
Well, some good news if you're heading to Yosemite this summer. All 13 park campgrounds will be open for the first time since 2019. That includes 500 campsites that are opening this month. You do need to have reservations. The first of those spots will be released this Sunday at 7 a.m. You can go to reservations.gov for more information. Coming up next, how an Oakland yoga studio is providing peace for its customers in more ways than one.
In the Bay Area, a new WNBA franchise is taking flight. Catch this first-in-a-lifetime inaugural season as the Golden State Valkyries play live on KPIX and Pix Plus.
Happy Thursday, Friday Eve, Little Friday, whatever you want to call it. We are so close to the end of the week and the weekend, but really not too many changes are on the way. You might notice the fog burning off a little bit quicker throughout this morning and afternoon with a lot more sunshine, especially for those places that have been right on the edge of the border of the fog and the sunshine. Today, likely going to be a bit sunnier. Inland areas, again, going to be in the low 80s through the rest of the week and into the weekend, but a bigger heat up is on the way into mid next week.
No matter what's going on around you. It is a new untapped market that's starting to get noticed. As we kick off Pride Month, our Itai Had looks at why the business world is catching on and catching up to the non-binary buying power.
Inhale, arms wide.
In the heart of Oakland,
Normal breath in.
is a yoga studio where flexibility is more than just touching your toes.
3 breaths.
It's a way of life. Marla Miller, who uses she/they pronouns, is the owner of Banana Yoga, a place where people like her can do something rare these days.
Exhale out our air.
Breathe.
Was it a deliberate decision to call this a non-binary business?
I think it happened organically. I myself am non-binary, and they say your vibe attracts your tribe.
Let's exhale out our air.
Most of the instructors and clientele here identify as gender expansive, a term for anyone who doesn't fit neatly into a male or female box.
Inhale.
People like Deanna Lise Resto, a student who goes by they, he, she, who says this is the first place that felt right.
I know that I can be me here.
According to a 2022 Pew study, about 5% of young adults say their gender differs from their sex assigned at birth. From gender-neutral fashion to non-binary haircuts, this once overlooked market is taking shape. Rex Wild, a trans non-binary consultant, says since 2021, the number of transgender and non-binary certified businesses has more than doubled.
We're only going to be seeing more small businesses that open up specifically catering to this market.
Release your ankle.
Marlo believes safe spaces like this one aren't just welcoming, they're essential.
If we focus on our members of a community who need the most help, everyone else will benefit.
Stretching norms.
Stay for 3.
And bending over backwards to make sure everybody feels safe.
Block goes off to the side.
And you can join us for our special Hope, Love, Pride. That is at 10 a.m. Sunday, June 29th, live on Pix Plus 44 Cable 12 and streaming right here on CBS News Bay Area. Coming up, we are going to meet a man who experienced unimaginable loss 19 years ago and turned that pain into a positive.
The dream for us was to just make a difference, give these kids something that they didn't have.
How that dream manifested to give hope to kids on the peninsula. A Peninsula man whose police officer son was killed in the line of duty did something remarkable in his memory. He used his grief as a catalyst for good. Our Sharon Chin introduces us to this week's CBS News Bay Area Icon Award winner.
When Dr. Frank Merrill looks onto an East Palo Alto field, he sees more than afternoon rugby practice.
The dream for us was to just make a difference, give these kids something that they didn't have.
That dream came out of a nightmare. Frank's stepson, East Palo Alto police officer Rich May, was shot to death by a parolee in 2006. During the trial, the defense argued the lack of positive activities contributed to the shooter's criminal history.
Should have been there.
After sentencing, Frank got to thinking about what he could do for underserved youth.
I can't solve world hunger, I can't solve world peace, I can't change families, I can't do a lot of things, but I can give them a field to play on.
So Frank and his late wife Clarice set out to build a field to create something positive and honor Rich, who is passionate about serving kids in the Police Activities League.
He was never one of those guys who was going to, try to fight the world. He was going to try to make the world a better place by being amenable to working with people.
The state-of-the-art Rich May Memorial Field opened in 2015. The Merrills and their supporters raised $2 million, mostly in private donations, and overcame years of obstacles.
When the lights came up and we turned the lights on, and that first night was the most glorious thing I've seen in years and years and years.
Today, 700 young people use the field each day. Under a unique operating agreement, the Rich May Foundation, which Frank started in 2017, manages the field that is owned by both the St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church and Ravenswood School District. Rich May Field is also home to the East Palo Alto Razorhawks Rugby Club. The club's grateful for the affordable rental fee at $50 an hour, a fraction of the going rate. Coach Via Samt says having a home base is a win for membership.
The last 3 years has doubled every year. So, man, now to have a field that we can call our own, it's a blessing for these kids, and we really appreciate it.
East Palo Alto Police Chief Jeff Liu, who was a good friend of Rich May, says the community also scores in crime prevention. Activities on the field create a community of good citizens.
It took a community to bring this together, and Frank was the catalyst behind that. He was the inspiration, and he was the driving force to make this happen.
They don't even realize it half the time that they're learning, good behavior, and it's good.
It's just a remarkable thing that needs to be celebrated. Frank needs to be celebrated.
So for building Rich May Memorial Field to foster healthy recreational opportunities, this week's CBS News Bay Area Icon Award goes to Dr. Frank Merrill.
Well, Frank is also a retired veterinarian, and he volunteers helping homeless people with free veterinary care through Project Street Vet. Meanwhile, Frank and the Rich May Foundation are trying to raise $1 million to replace the turf on the field. Remember, you can nominate a local hero for a CBS News Bay Area Icon Award on our website, kpix.com/icon. Well, thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ann Makovic. We're going to be right back with your First Alert forecast and another look at your top stories.